So I haven't made a video in a long time, but this video isn't necessarily going to be about my transition. It's going to be about why I stepped away from making videos. I stepped away because I was upset. I was upset with the trends in the representation of trans men in the community and in the media, and how skewed things were within the media, within the trans men community. And I'm speaking solely of trans men only because I'm more aware of that, being as a trans man. So the more time I spent around the trans community, especially now that I'm nearing 1 year on T, the more I realized, like I said, how skewed it is. I realized that in a place where I'm supposed to find comfort and support, I definitely saw a lot more displacement, saw division, and I saw judgment. One of the things that I think is really important to remember as far as representation, about the right representation, is very simple. If they can't see it, they can't be it. I don't see a diverse representation of trans men. I see white, I see attractive, I see passable trans men. What you don't see is you don't see working class people, you don't see trans people with disabilities, you don't see trans people who are who have extra loving, or even trans men who decide not to medically transition, or trans men who are people of color. And you know, for trans men who are part of the minority groups, it's important because when you see yourself reflected in the media, it's crucial, particularly in the face of prejudice, discrimination, and invalidating actions and comments. You know, when you see yourself reflected in the media, it's powerful in effect to simply validate your worth as a human being. So if you, like I said, if you can't see it, then you can't be it. So if I can't see someone that's like me, it makes it almost seem impossible for me to get to that point. And overall, representation, the right representation, is important for voice, it's important for visibility, and it's important for validation. For people who don't have this, or for trans men who aren't represented, for example, if we're not white, for example, if we're not attractive, whatever socially deemed attractiveness is, if we're not from upper middle class or from a prestigious college, or we are not seen, therefore we are not validated, therefore our voices are overshadowed by the white, attractive, passable males. If you don't think that's a problem, then I think you should start educating yourself and reading why this trend is becoming very, very much detrimental to people of color, for people with disabilities, for people who aren't deemed attractive, for people who are not passing, for trans men who decide not to medically transition. So another thing I explained earlier was about division. And there's this big division and divide between trans men who medically transition, and trans men who are pre-testosterone. Trans men who are pre-testosterone, I honestly think, is the saddest thing that I've realized between these two groups of trans men. And that the guys who are pre-testosterone are the ones that are singled out. You know, and I know this because when I first started transitioning, I socially transitioned. I didn't feel like I was being seen. I didn't feel like I was accepted in the trans community because I wasn't trans enough, because I wasn't on testosterone. There was even an incident where I was hanging out with these trans guys, and one of the guys actually misgendered me, even though I had came out as a trans guy. And so there's this division between the two, and it wasn't until I was on, actually recently, it wasn't until my 9th, 10th, and 11th month where I started receiving a lot of followers. I started receiving a lot of messages, saying things like, oh, keep doing what you're doing, all these like positive affirmations, and especially ones that are like, oh, you know what, you're so brave for doing whatever you're doing, blah blah blah. And that's all great, but honestly I think the bravest thing is people who are pre-testosterone. They're the ones who they identify themselves with the gender they believe they are every single day, despite everybody outside that sees the opposite. I think that's brave. And there's these ample of people who follow trans men who are medically transitioning, and I feel like the ones who need our support aren't getting the support that they need. And it's sad because pre-testosterone trans guys are at a place or at a crossroads where they're deciding whether or not to take this giant leap. And it's also sad because I've been there. I know how hard it was. I know the struggle. I know how difficult it is to make the decision to take the leap. And I feel like trans guys, we have this bond because we know the struggle. We understand how hard it is. Although we don't go through the exact same things, we do have overlapping experiences, which makes us stronger, makes us a stronger bond. And despite knowing this, we don't help the ones that need the most, which is these pre-testosterone trans guys. And like I said, they're at this point where they need our help, they need our support, and they need it more now than ever. Support any person of color to get their voice out there, whether it's on Instagram, on Tumblr, on YouTube, whatever it may be. Because nowadays, all I'm seeing is this excessive amount of white, attractive, passable trans guys. And I noticed it a lot when I first started transitioning. When I was trying to figure things out, I was like Googling and like trying to going on YouTube every day, and all I saw were these white, passable, attractive, like trans guys. But that didn't represent me. That's not what I was looking for. I wanted someone that looked like me, someone that represented where I came from, and I just couldn't find that. And it's been 2 years since I started transitioning, and I still haven't found it. And the thing is that now that transgender is becoming a more hot topic here in the media, you're not only seeing them on Instagram, on Tumblr, but now you're seeing them on BuzzFeed. And the thing with BuzzFeed, it came out with this thing a while ago, and it was like top 10 attractive trans men, and they were all white. And I thought that was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, or one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen, because like I said, it goes back to representation, which is if they can't see it, they can't be it. So they're saying that if we don't look like this, if we are not white or socially deemed attractive, then then what is our worth? I'm also seeing trans men being pulled into talk shows, but I noticed that if they're not white, they're light-skinned African American. If they're Asian, they're half white, or they're from a prestigious college, But honestly, like, what about the rest of us? The rest of us who aren't deemed socially attractive, or the rest of us who are passable, or from an affluent family, or from a prestigious colleges. Where is our representation? What about the people who are struggling every day with 2-3 jobs just to pay for college? Or what about those who are just trying to pay for life? Where's our representation? Because I don't know about you, but that's the stories I want to hear. I want to hear about these trans guys going through the hustle, the dedication, the drive of not juggling being one part of minority, which is being transgender. It's about being transgender, but also a person of color, or a person of color, and at the same time being of lower middle class. That's a story I want to hear. And isn't that the point of this all, is to tell our stories, And I think we deviated from that. Nowadays, all you see is these trans guys who post about them being very physically attractive, having a six-pack, or their physique and their progress, and that's great, that's awesome. But I feel like that's become a very centered idea and goal for a lot of trans guys, and that's great, go ahead, get healthy. But I think we deviated from telling our stories to support and help others who need to hear these stories, that need to see that where they are is where they want to be is possible. And I don't think showing these progress things about your physical physique is gonna help that. And the point of this all was to tell our stories, like I said. And if we're bombarded with these stories of white, attractive, passable, trans guys, it only pertains to a very small portion of the rest of us. A white person's story, transition story, is going to be completely different. For example, for me, who I'm a first generation kid, I am a biracial kid. I am from a very traditional religious home, so where's my story? Who can I relate to? Because certainly it won't be the ones that I've been seeing. And if you don't think this is a problem, then you come from a standpoint of privilege. I see it because I'm not a part of it. I am in the outside looking in. If you think that the others don't see it, then I wouldn't be making this video. I also want to talk about these trans men who have a lot of followers on Instagram. A lot of them, a handful of them, are white, attractable, passable trans guys. And if you have a large following, then you have a responsibility. That's just the way it goes. You have the ability to take a stand, and you have to use it. Use it as a platform to voice out for those who don't have voice. Or you can use your platform as a way to be seen for others that can't be seen. For trans guys who have the amount of followers that they do, they have thousands and thousands of people following them. You have this accountability and the responsibility to look out for people of color. We are as much as part of this community as you are, so you can't leave us out. You come from a standpoint of accessibility to a lot of people, and you need to use that and utilize that to represent the rest of us. So another thing I also saw was this increase of queer businesses, and I'm all for supporting queer businesses, but before anyone takes the leap in supporting them, I really suggest that you take a step back and you look and just be aware of how the people in the trans community is being represented. I don't suggest that you blindly follow and represent a brand just because it looks cool. Because when you represent a brand or representing the apparel, you're representing the organization as a whole. You are carrying around, you're showing around the mission statement of these organizations. But when you look through their organization webpage, they have one racially diverse person. And just because you have one person of color does not make you racially diverse. Just because you have one person of color, it does not make you racially inclusive. That's like a white person saying, hey, I'm not racist, I have a black guy friend. My main point here is to think before you do, because now it's becoming a trend of all these people wearing these brands, like I said, because they think it looks cool. And they're really just representing an organization that again proliferates this idea of white, attractive, passable trans men. If you're at all offended by this video, I think that's good. I think that it's important to talk about things that are sometimes offensive, or sometimes hits a little. And it's important because a lot of times these things are not talked about. They're swept under the rug. I feel like a lot of people feel it but don't say anything about it. And the reason why I really wanted to make this video is because trans guys, especially pre-transitioning guys, like message me and say things like, I'm really glad that you're posting because it gives me hope, because all I see is white trans guys and I don't relate to them, and I can't relate to them, and somehow I can relate to you. And that was a red flag to me, because I'm not the only one that sees it, other people see it too. So I want this to be my first video back, and I hope to make a video very soon. And it is going to be more so about my transition and what I've been going through. But it's mostly going to be more story type like. I'm tired of really just saying, oh, the 6th month I saw these and so changes, and the 7th month I saw blah 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 changes. Because I honestly don't really think that physical changes are very important to keep track of, but a lot has to do with mental and emotional changes, and things that I come across through every day that's starting to change, and things that I am realizing that is more important than talking about my physical changes and how I'm becoming more passable as a man. Yeah, so if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit me up. Yeah, and I hope this video was somewhat informative. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.